this both audio and video, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Are you
great.
good with that?
Yeah, totally.
Okay. All right. Well, Jen, welcome to the Sisterhood. You feel like a sister already.
That's nice. That's a really nice compliment. Thanks for having me.
We're so glad to have you.
Mhm.
It feels like an old friend. I mean, not old, but maybe kind of old. I mean, we're all getting
Yeah.
older.
Yeah, we are.
Our kids are getting older, which tells us we're old.
That's
right.
the clue. That
Right.
clue refuses to hide itself.
And the pandemic hair did not lie as far as the grays.
It sure didn't. It sure didn't. But I'll tell you what, I got that fixed right up. I really did. My
Were
you the first one in?
I had to have been close. My stylist was like, "Okay, we're opening up, in super limited capacity. Here's all the rules. Here's the stuff. Do you even want to come in?" I'm like, "Do I even want to come in? Do you know me? You texted me for a reason." So I was like there were just 3 of us in the whole place, including her, all spread. I was like, "I'll wear 40 masks if you can solve these roots." So yes, I'm back. Like I'm back, and I'm a human girl again.
Yeah, feels good. I know. I was the same. First one in the chair almost. I was just sprinting.
Help us.
Well, my roots are brought to you by my husband that were done on the back porch.
Well,
from a box from Walmart. I mean, we're going high end here.
Look, I was there.
But you know what? I'm like, wow, we could really save some serious dollars if we continue this practice.
Yeah, you're not wrong. You probably shouldn't have let him see that price tag for $7.85.
Exactly.
Like now you can't go back.
That's a good
now
point.
He knows. Yeah. He knows what's possible.
I know. Yeah. He actually doesn't know how much I spend on it. So that maybe, I know.
That's a good holdback.
That's important. Well, Jen, we're in Your Voice Matters series. And one of the things we love so much about you is that you talk about your teenagers and your young adults, and a lot of people aren't, because it's hard. It's hard to talk about them without offending them. So
that's right.
Right. Mm-hmm. And so we really love that you talk about just what it's like parenting in these years. And one of the things we want to camp on in this series is, how do you get kids to know their voice? Like, we're on a journey of finding our voice our whole lives, really, because we evolve with that. But then how do we help our kids find their voice and really parent them toward that end? So let's talk first just about, what are some of your thoughts about why is it important to teach our kids to know their voice? Let's just start there.
Yeah, it's interesting. I can think of it in backlighting if we just look at our lives. And so I'm 45, and my age group is in large part, in mass, having to do this pretty heavy lifting of either rediscovering our voice or finding it, for some of us, for the first time, or parsing it out from the voice that we were told we were supposed to have versus the one. And we're midway through our lives, right? And so, I mean, my gosh. And so when I think about what heavy lifting that is, and how intensely and intentionally women in our age range have to work to get take that back to its studs and rebuild it from an authentic voice, from a true place. I don't want that for our kids. I don't want our kids to hit their 30s and 40s and have to unravel the thing and reweave it back together correctly. And so we are saving them a lot of time and energy and heartache if we can teach them right now that their authentic voice counts, just as it is. It's not too loud. It's not too soft. Especially our girls, obviously girls are frequently told, you're too much, you should be less, but a lot of them are told you're not enough, you should be more. And so whatever the thing is, it's our work to help our kids find their own volume and then run in that lane unapologetically and with confidence and with love and with a generous spirit. And so the good news is, and this is just my observation, I have 5 kids, and 2 of them are in college and 2 of them are in high school, and then 1 just finished middle school. So we're all in the teen, young adult spaces. And I find this generation already 40 steps ahead of where we were. at their
So
age.
true. Mm-hmm.
Like I cannot even believe them, how self-assured they are. They're in much clearer possession of their voices than I think we were. Some of this is generational. They're just coming up a little bit different. They're already a little bit more free than we were. And so at this point, it's either ours to hold them back, or it is ours to say, let's run in this direction. You've got your feet on the right path. And I'd like you not to spend a decade undoing some poor inner wiring. I'd like you to start living free right this minute, age 20. I wish somebody would have told me that at their age. I wish I would have heard even something like that at their age. I had no idea we had permission.
Can we talk about honesty for a minute? When you talk in your new book about setting a foundation of honesty in a family, and I'll be honest, as a mom of teenagers, sometimes I get a little nervous about what they are going to say or what their voice is going to be.
God, they're so unpredictable.
And so as we are giving this, setting the table, I guess, of having honest conversations and allowing them to be who they are, I'm a little bit nervous about
That's
who
fair.
they are. Yeah. And so how do we as parents honestly give feedback and also let them honestly be who they are so that we can launch them well? I will tell you, I follow you on, all the places to follow you. And I remember when you took Sydney to school in DC, and I'm going to cry. You just had this post of the two of you hugging.
Oh, yeah.
And
I can't look at it either.
I know.
I cannot look at that picture.
Was lucky me, lucky world. And that's what we want for our kids, right? To send them out and say, I am so lucky to be your mom. And the world is so lucky to have you. So, of course, when Jen Hatmaker is on, I'm bawling my eyes out.
Well, and now you're making me cry, so you need to...
Hello. I wasn't ready.
But that's what we want. And you do it so well publicly. Now, I know that sometimes what we put publicly is not the same as all the inner turmoil that's happening in our hearts. But how do you say, yes, go, be who you are, even when, especially when it might be different than what I had hoped for you or I had planned for you?
It's so real. I mean, you're just right at the heart of it right now. I've said before to moms, I have so many things I want to say, they're all competing. I think we're handed this narrative when our kids are little, and it's pretty ferocious. And it's kind of this idea that if we follow this template and we do these things and we hit this formula, we can virtually guarantee outcomes for our kids, right? Like, this is what you do, this, and this, and then you spit them out and they follow this path and they hit these marks. I mean, we really were. I am not inventing it. That was the air that we breathed as young moms. Very, very deeply entrenched in this idea that there was a certain kind of kid we wanted to produce, and here's what we had to do to get that kid. Now, we are way down the line. We know that was not just fallacy, but destructive. That there was some form of a kid that we were trying to squeeze every last one of them into. Just terrible, because they zig sometimes when we want them to zag, and they are who they are. I mean, that is no hint of a lie. They are who they are. And so I tell young moms sometimes at the beginning of the thing, I'm like, listen, please try to get this straight. You need to raise the kid you have, not the kid you were. Those are not the same things. And so there is a real courage in looking at our kids individually, each one in their own space, and saying, who is this kid? Like, who is this kid? What makes this kid tick? What makes this kid excited? What makes this kid afraid? What does she love? What are his dreams? What am I hearing? What's he not saying? It's work to excavate that, because it has nothing to do with the form that we were handed. Virtually never. Maybe 2% of them hit that exact template, but that's it. That is it. And so what happens is we end up getting faced with this impulse to force our own kids to pretend for us. And they know when we want a different version of them than the one we have. They know the score. They know when we only say certain things about them online or to other people. They know by our language and our verbal and body language, what we disapprove of, what we don't like about them, what we wish was different. They know the score. And so what we are left with is this horrible dilemma, which is actually letting them be exactly who they are and loving them there. Yeah. So for example, I had my first two kids, as you mentioned, Sydney was my second, and they kind of followed parts of the template. This is what you do, and then you go to college, and then you do it like this, and then you graduate in 4 years, whatever the thing is. My third kid, Caleb, who just graduated from high school, like by the skin of his teeth. Like that one almost put his dad and I in the grave. And he is not going to college. He's going to go military. He's going to do something completely different. And even outside of that, he's interested in trade work. He's just a different kid. And so I felt myself resorting to that old impulse a year or two ago because he's so smart. He's probably our most naturally gifted kids in terms of just being smart. He remembers everything he reads almost verbatim, can quote it back, this crazy memory. He's just a smart, academics are easy for him. And so I kept thinking, I don't want to waste your brain. I don't want to waste your brain, that if you don't hit the marks, I don't know where your brain's going to go or how it's going to thrive. And it was a real come to Jesus for me to be like, if you force your kid to go to college to please you, so that you have a story to tell about him, he is going to be absolutely miserable. He's going to be that'll be the most miserable experience of his life. And so in some ways we have to let our kids be who they are and decide that this is not a thing about us. It's not that that's a reflection on us. It's not an indictment on us. It's not our crowning glory. They're their own person. They are a human person that we steward for this long of their life. And so this is hard work for moms, really hard work. Because guess what? When they disappoint you, it's no joke. When they mess up and they crash and burn, it is serious. And so I'm still working this out. Maybe by the fifth kid, I'll have it down. Y'all have me back on in 4 years and let me see how I'm doing. This to me is some of the most courageous parenting work there is.
I could not agree more. And I think the older our kids get, the more we realize, one, we never had control, and we certainly are not in control now. Gosh. And secondly, that, it's that fight of performance and identity and that enmeshment piece, right? Of not blurring those lines between who they are and who we are. And then creating this weird performance and identity based on what they do or how I do as a parent, right?
Right.
There's just really, really there's a gray area there that we have to fight all the time. Okay, one thing I want to ask you is, you talk about this idea of clunky beginnings, and how have you let your kids get comfortable with clunky beginnings and really be okay with failure? What have you and Brandon done to do that?
Talk about something we were conditioned to not let them do.
Right.
I mean, that little narrative that I was just talking about, 100%, a huge part of it was protect them at all costs. Let's keep every bad feeling away. If it's loss, if it's failure, God forbid, if it is sadness, if it's hurt feelings, I mean, man, we bubble wrap those kids and we mitigate every human experience that we possibly can, so that everything about their childhood is just idyllic and like an enchanted fairyland. And then what happens is we end up raising kids who melt on the first warm day, right? They built nothing strong inside of them. They never even learned how to navigate failure. They never even learned how to navigate fear, or that sadness is part of being a human. It doesn't always, you don't always fall uphill, kid. Some things are just sad, and here's what you do with the feelings. You feel them. That's what they're there for. And so this failure bit is, man, what a beast. And I felt it in my own heart and soul. Like, me and Brandon laugh all the time. I'm like, hey, remember that time you got second place in the 6th grade science fair? I say that to my husband. That's back when we were like not really letting them fail. I'm like, good job. Do you have your ribbon still?
Yeah.
Let's display that. You worked hard on that, bro. And so it comes from a good place. It comes from, because we love our kids and we don't like them to feel bad. That's at the bottom of it. We don't like them to fail. That's at the bottom of it. That's not terrible impulse. That doesn't make us bad people. But it won't necessarily raise really healthy and strong adults. So we took our hands off the steering wheel. I don't know how else to say it. We have let them fail, and fail they have. Like, don't you guys worry about it. Like, failure lives in this house, and we let our kids feel the sting of their own choices. We let them pay the piper. We don't assume that they're always telling the truth and every adult in their life is out to get them. We are trying to get them to learn what it means to take responsibility for their own lives, and that includes failure. And so what I want to say, and this is the unfortunate part of this answer, is that it just feels kind of bad. Like, I wish I could tell your listeners, and it feels good because you're raising strong. It doesn't. It feels bad. The whole time it feels bad. You don't want them to hurt. You don't want them to hold like a tattered pile of failure in their hands because it didn't work, or didn't work the first time. And so we have to be comfortable with those bad feelings too. Knowing that it is no lie. Failure is literally one of our best teachers. It is, and it can be. And if it's our best teacher, it is for our kids too. If we will let them sit in it, if we will teach them what to do with failure, that we don't just blame, we don't just necessarily throw in the towel on first blush, we don't point the fingers. There are some really constructive things to do with failure, very constructive, and they'll grow you up. And so that's our work. It's not to eliminate all the effects of failure. It is rather to say, what do we do with this? Let's talk about what we do with this feeling. Let's talk about what we do with this false start. Let's talk about what it might look to pivot and try it a second time, taking what we've learned. There's just so many rich lessons inside of that work. And so if we can get comfortable with the discomfort of it all, we're already on the right path.
Okay, so let's get into that a little bit, as far as, when you have experienced that with your kids and you are coaching them in this voice thing, right? And we're trying to figure out how to help them find this voice they have inside of them. How, after kind of in the aftermath of that, how do you coach them to rise again? Because that's a piece of it, is how do you rise again after a failure? Because when we have failure, we feel unworthy to rise again.
That's right.
And so that happens. That's a part of that. We feel like, okay, well, I can't speak to that. I can't do this. I can't do that. So what have you done to help them find their voice again after that?
Well, the good news is they only have to rise again once or twice, and they develop muscle memory for it. It's its own teacher, sort of redemption, that try again, that second effort. It's its own reward. So it will teach them itself. We have to our work is to coach them to get their foot back on that path the first few times, and then they'll develop resiliency from it. And so I don't know if there's a great formula here, but I know one thing that we have found some traction with, at least with our kids, is to sit with them and help them evaluate the failure. So some things, not everything is created equal. Like our kid, I've sat down with a kid before in this house where something went completely sideways. And when we began to evaluate it together, deeply sober-minded, not in an emotional space, but more kind of an examining moment, a couple of things we've gone, I think maybe that they kind of decided, I'm not going to redo this one. I think this was a failure because it was a false start. Like, I shouldn't have started this one. The factors now, I can look back and go, that wasn't the right choice to begin with. So sometimes that's what that looks like, is to say, I've learned from it. And what I've learned is this isn't the right thing, but this is. right? So I'm not going to redo this one, but I'm going to pivot over here and try this instead. Sometimes it looks like we can evaluate and go, what missed here? What didn't connect? What did you learn? What would you do differently if you could do it again? Like, what did that teach you? And then the second start is stronger. It's wiser. It's a little bit more focused. And so I'm not sure that there's always one ending, but I think the process of both modeling for our kids and literally grabbing them by the hand and walking them through the evaluation piece, because we're not great with dealing with unhappy feelings, period. We either shove them onto somebody else and we're a terror, a holy terror. We bury them and pretend they didn't happen. I'm fine. Everything's fine. I don't care. We displace them or whatever. So I think just showing them like, this feels bad. That's normal. Like everybody who's ever been through a failure feels the way that you're feeling right now. What do we do with it? That piece of being able to look at the thing and think it through reasonably and rationally and with their good sense is an incredible skill set. Absolutely incredible. The end game is going to look different depending on the circumstance, depending on the kid. But rather than just go, it's fine, just get over it. Or just try it again uncritically. Just run right back into the same exact fire. We don't need to be critical thinkers here. Neither one of those are good responses.
Right. We don't want to just keep repeating the same mistakes over and over.
Right.
So I heard you say two things that stuck out to me. First was on the evaluating, okay, maybe this was wrong to even try this, or this wasn't the right thing for me.
Yep.
A mom, to be okay with that, she has to go back to what you said before about not holding to that plan tightly, because maybe the reason they were going down this path is because we were saying this is the path. Totally. And so part of that in letting our kids maybe change course is that we have to actively take our hands off and allow them to change course. So I just want to point that out to moms. Maybe it's obvious to everyone, but I needed to verbalize that. And then the second thing you said was about modeling. And can you speak to the value of women, especially because that's primarily who's listening, when we model exploring and using our own voices out in the world, what that does for our kids and their development as they're learning to use and identify their voices?
Totally. I deeply believe this. I've never been a good, what do you want to call it? Like a systems mom who, do you know what I mean? With the schedules or here's the family meeting that we have every Sunday at 7. And that's just never been my way. I'm not real formulaic as a parent, which includes instruction for me sometimes. So what I've noticed is great news for moms like me is when we are wholehearted, we are the moms, when we have a really clear sense of our voice, when we use it with courage, when we are pretty self-aware and using our gifts in a really flourishing way in the world, our kids pick up every second of that. And so this is one of those things that in my experience, it is more caught than taught. And so even if we are not sitting down with this beautiful lecture, you know, about here's how to use your voice, we've got the words all right, and it's just like such a moment, our kids learn by what they see. And so I think it matters more than anything that they are watching their moms live integrated, sincere, genuine lives. They are watching their moms own their own convictions and ideas and gifts and wants and needs and all of it. That to me is our best and our highest point of contribution to raise kids who own their own voice. And so if what that means is that some of the women listening decide, oh, in parenting kids who have ownership, the main work I need to do right now is own it myself. That is a great place to spend your energy. That is not wasted. That will be observed. That will be heard. That will be seen. It matters so very much. And so I think modeling is 80% of it. And they don't listen to what we say anyway. Like our fancy lectures, you know what I'm saying? Like, and they're already glazed over. Like they can't give us more than 3 minutes. And so really it is in the dailiness of our lives that they understand what their mom is made of, and they decide to model it.
Yeah. Okay. I feel like this gets into a little bit of tone. And I really want to talk about this because I think when people often find their voice, they develop a tone, right? So how do we nurture tone, both in ourselves, as we're finding our voice, maybe for the first time or the second time or the third time. And also in our kids, because they often are young. And so they may, come out of the gates hot and really be just offending everyone in their path. So can you talk a little bit about how you've even been on that journey yourself?
Well, this is a hard one because the tone in both my own mouth and the mouths in this house is loud. So we are like high octane. We're just a high octane family. And so I think sometimes tone is mistakenly packaged as soft and gentle is better, and assertive and forceful is bad. And so I think we start there by dismantling that false starting place. Because we take up we're all kinds of volumes in this world. And thank goodness we need, I wrote a whole chapter on how much space women are allowed to take up. And I made up these titles that some women are mega, and some women are mezzo, kind of, and some women are modest. And we need them all. We need every single volume. We need every single tone. There's not one is bad and good, not one is better or best, none. So what really matters is, who are you? Like, what is your tone? And so here's the thing, kids are going to get some of this wrong because they're kids. We did too. They are going to grow in wisdom. They are going to grow in maturity. They are going to grow in relationship. I think there's something really valuable. I've discovered this with mine because they're all so mega, golly.
So all of them, you have all of them.
Remy would be the only one that's not mega. And God bless her, she just gets like swallowed whole in this family. I always just tell Brandon, poor thing, God bless and keep her. But there's something really empowering to a kid, even a kid whose tone isn't quite right yet. They're working it out. They're testing it out into the world to see how it goes. But there's something powerful to say to them, even there, I really like who you are. I am like into you. I'm into your funny voice. I love that you're so sweet and you wouldn't want to read a book in a corner. I love that about you. I love that you have big ideas. This sort of empowerment, to me, it's a better corrective tool, if you will, on tone, if that's even necessary, than kind of shaming them out of it. They'll learn. They will learn. If nothing else, the real world will teach them. The real world will teach them when this kind of way you are choosing to be is not going to be rewarded by your community. Like, you're going to have to face the music. You can choose it, but this is going to suffer for it. They'll learn. There's social consequences to the way that our kids are in the world. But I think them seeing their very best selves reflected in their mom's eyes is pretty powerful stuff. And we can offer that to them even when they are sorting it out still. I mean, even when it is not like refined yet. And so we try to do that with our kids. We don't always get this right. I'm just on an interview. I'm telling you, this is my highlight reel. These are my best practices. I'm not saying I'll always get this right, but I do think that our kids think we like them. And liking your kids a deal. They know we have to love them. But when they know that their parent likes them, that feels pretty special.
That's a good distinction.
And tell us a little bit more about how Like, do you study your kids? I mean, like I'm thinking about just like calling out those things that are positive in them and that you see in them that are unique. Cause I agree with you. I think that's just speaking life over people.
Yeah.
Like you're just speaking life over them when you're calling that out. And how have you done that even in those hard times where you're like, you know what, there's not a lot of good I'm seeing right now, but I'm still going to call it out.
Yeah, totally. And this is not to say that we abdicate parenting. That we never say to our kid, this behavior is beneath you. Like, this is not you at your healthiest, best self. This is harm. We still do that. Of course we do that. We don't always just tell our kids they're behaving beautifully when they're not. And I don't mean to suggest that. But I think this is something like we've learned in our adult relationship, like Brandon and I, who have had to work. We've been married 26 years. We're still at it, you guys. We're still just working and slogging away at the thing. And we have learned how to see each other better. And thus, even in conflict, we learn to be like, okay, I think what's under this is what you're afraid of. Or this is the thing that you need to be seen for. This is what you mean. This is what you're trying to say. I think that marriage work has actually helped us in parenting. Because we're more likely now to, instead of just always being parents who are parenting, do you know what I mean? Just always with the thing, correcting and steering and pushing and always. It's given us a more human approach to our kids to be able to say, I hate the way you're talking to me right now, and I'm not going to have it, and you're not going to do it. However, I think this is what you're saying. I think this is what you're feeling, and tell me if I'm right. And I'm telling you, if that does not take the wind out of the anger sails so fast. I mean, kids want to be seen just as much as we do. And they have the added problem of not being able to self-identify very, very well yet. They're young. They haven't learned those tools of self-evaluation. They're not very finely tuned at this point. And so for a parent to be able to say, I know you, and with my wise brain that's smarter than you, I think this is what you really need. I think this is what you're really saying. The way that helps a kid step into a moment with more sincerity and with more integrity is pretty powerful. And so there is just a human side to parenting that we have to allow ourselves to experience as moms, that we're not always just the one with the answers. We're not always just the one correcting. We're not always just the one disciplining, always one setting the rules, although that's a part of everything that we do, of course. But I think if we can allow ourselves to be human with our kids, we will really see them rise to the occasion, especially the big kids, 100% the big kids. But this works with the littles too. So yeah, I don't know. I get that right. Like, I don't know, 55% of the time. That's
right.
Not,
no, but it's true. I mean, I think as kids get older, they really just want to be understood and really known. I mean, as we all do, really any kid at any age, they want to be known, but especially as they get older, just the fact that you really see them and what's going on is the most important thing. It's not to be right. It's not to have the right answer. It's just to see them.
That's right.
I love that.
And respect them too. I think teenagers
want
to be respected.
Whoa, that's a big one.
And that's where that, oh gosh, this is rubbing me a little bit wonky, but I have to treat you like I would want you to treat me, because again, I'm modeling.
Yep.
This is how we operate in the adult world, hopefully.
Yes.
And so respect has been something that I've been trying to do as we've had hard conversations around disagreement.
Totally. And that's possible. We can prioritize respect and dialogue, even inside the most hellacious conversation, right? One that has either monumental consequences or there are very real damages, or even there, we can still model dialogue. I am going to listen to you. I'm going to repeat what I hear. I'm going to see you. I don't know if we can hand our kids a better skill set than to learn how to navigate tension and conflict in a mature way that doesn't necessarily burn everything to the ground all the time. That's how teens want to do.
True.
Teens just want to burn it down. I mean, just throw the match over their shoulder on their way out. And so showing them that we can do that with them, even when we want to pluck their eyelashes out one by one. It's something. I mean, it's not nothing. It's something. Yes.
Right. And the last couple of months have given us plenty of opportunity with all the together time. I mean, I'm just thinking, wow, I did some things really well and I did some things really, really terribly.
Same.
When my own stress was really high. And then it gets to that human part to go back and say, okay, I really did not do that well. Hello, that's not a news flash to anyone. We could all see mom's behavior was poor. But to be honest in that allows them to then give me grace that I'm asking for. And
that's right.
I think parenting teenagers is more fun than people give it credit for.
I say this all the time. Like, we're talking about the hard parts right now among us and what it means to raise healthy adults. But I'm just telling you, give me a teen any day over a toddler. Like the early years for me were hard. Were really, really hard. We're really so exhausting mentally and physically. And so to me, having them at this age, when they are truly coming into themselves, they're funny. I like independence. So that is not a rub for me. For some moms, that's a rub. It really is. They struggle to hand independence to the kids. I do not. That's not my struggle. And so walking them toward freedom, watching them go, seeing them bloom in the ways that they are, it's fun. I mean, it is really fun. When moms ahead of me say, oh, just wait, like adult kids are going to be your favorite thing you ever had, I believe them. Because I enjoy their growing up so much. I like them older. They're so interesting. They'll surprise you, both good and bad. But they really are heading into their own world. They're heading into their own life. And that feels pretty exciting. And when I think of it like that, like, this is not my kid to just keep control as long as I possibly can, but rather I kind of get to walk this kid into his adulthood. That feels so special and exciting and promising. And so I think when we can think of our kids like that, that we get to partner with them all the way until, like, that's it. They walk right into their own life. It's pretty special. And so I've got one of them right now. He just graduated from college, and he's sending out his resume for a whole grown-up person's job, a person that has a degree, who knows what he's doing. Like, he is a specialized person now. And he and I were just having this conversation a couple of days ago because he was mentioning a couple of jobs he was considering applying for. And they're essentially like an internship. And there's nothing wrong with internships, but I mean like something a high school kid would have. And I was like, son, do you know right now that is below your pay grade? You are an expert. You have a degree in your work. You are a specialist. Like, these are, and he was like, Mom, it's freaking me out that you're saying that. How am I grown? I'm like, I don't know how you're grown. You were just born. But even getting to say to them, you're a grown man and you are ready for this and you are qualified for this and you should go for this. What in the world? What is happening? It's fantastic.
No, so fun.
Yeah. So
well,
fun.
Jen, any last words on just helping moms as they are finding their own voice? Let's just leave moms with a little word of encouragement from you today.
Oh man, I think I just want to say to the women listening, and you maybe just have to start this at this stage, like it's absolutely square one, which is you absolutely have the right and the permission to own your own voice. Like, this is not up for grabs. It's not if you should or how dare you or what would it mean for somebody else or any of the things that hold us back from like a genuine, authentic, integrated life. In fact, it's the opposite is true. We actually need you. We need you whole. We need you true. Like, we need you to live into the capacity that you were meant to live into. That is your best gift to the world. Like, those are the greatest women I know. The ones who own their voices, the ones who use them with strength and confidence at whatever volume they're meant to use it. These are the best moms I know, the best partners and wives. They are using their gifts. Their families and relationships are flourishing. They serve their community well. They love God well. It's just, this is the way to live. Like, this is the path toward, I think, the life that we all want to build. And so if you can just decide up front that you have permission to do this work for your own self, it will benefit literally everybody that you love in your entire life. And so I'm cheering for you in every possible way. This is good work. It's not easy work, but it's important work. And so thanks for having me on to be able to talk about it a little bit today and talk about parenting and talk to other women. It's so nice to see other faces. So thank you for being on Zoom.
Well, thank you so much, Jen. Your voice is beautiful in the world. Thank you so much for sharing it with us today.
Yes.
All right. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye, you guys.